I took many decisions out of my mind based on fear, and things were going really bad. Welcome, everyone. Here am I again to share something, and this is something that I've shared many times when I meet someone, and it just came up to my mind like why I don't make it a podcast all of it, and I just share it and spread it out there so that people can use it. And it is about decision making. So how can we truly make a decision where we can be completely aligned with our centers? So now you would ask yourself, okay, what is he talking about, those centers? What is the centers? Like, what is it? A center where I have to call or something? Not really. So in Tantra and in the spiritual world, we speak our centers about usually about chakras. So we have the genital areas, we have the gut area, we have also our heart, and also we consider our mind as centers where we can check in to see what should we do in an X scenario or in a Z scenario. So, and this is what I want to share with you. So when I speak about centers, just remind that it's about checking in what our mind is thinking, or what would the mind says about this? What would our heart says, and how is it reacting? The same with the gut and the same with the genitals. So there is a scenario. It doesn't really matter which type of scenario. The process is exactly the same for each one. You can be in front of a very important decision that you have to take. You have to buy a house, you have to do an investment, you have to quit a relationship. You're deciding to go to a certain place to travel. You're wanting to step into a new job. You want to quit your job. It the scenario can be anything. You want to adopt a dog. It can be anything. You want to have a kid. Anything. It doesn't matter. Any scenario is managed and processed the same way to reach out to a decision and a final decision where you're really going to feel good with it. And I've experienced this in my life. So this has changed my life completely. And I will add for the first time a little bit of a story about myself. So I didn't use this for all my life. I learned it in the last years, and there's where things really start changing. But for many years, I was taking decision based on rationality, and my life was a hell. I I took many decisions out of my mind based on fear, and things were going really bad. But yeah, I was happy and lucky enough to welcome a spiritual path, and especially coming closer to Tantra that teach me this, and I want to share it with you. And from there on, when I started practicing, I realized how much life was changing. So my first thing I learned is how to check in with the heart center. And that's the first thing. And I went on a journey. I had literally no money. I had 825 euros cash. And I said, okay, let's just do this. Let's test if this is really working when people say, follow your heart, follow your heart. Yeah, it's easier said than done. How do you practically do it? So I went on that journey, and every decision I made, I mean everything. If I would go left or I would go right, if I would take that ticket or I would take another flight ticket, I would put my money there, I would put my money here. I would find a job or I would go and give a CV. In every decision I took, I checked with my heart and I said, I'm gonna test this and see if it really works, and hopefully it will. And I can say it did work. However, I have some insights on this. So I went on travel. I was constantly checking with my heart, and it was very simple. The concept is very simple. You create different options. So option A or scenario A, and you put all the details. This is really key. You have to put all the details. You really have to visualize, and you have to be honest. Honest and transparent. Try don't invent things that are not there or that cannot be there. Make it as real as possible. So in my case, was it, should I go and take this ticket and start a journey where I have no money? I'm landing in the middle of Europe. I have to cross very expensive countries. I have no future job. I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea of anything. Should I go this way? And I was observing my heart. And there's where you want to be able to feel and experience what is happening. And if you're not used to feel, here it will feel numb, nothing. And this does not mean that this is not working. This means that you're numb. So then you have to work on this. But unfortunately, this podcast is not about how to activate your system. This is about how to make decisions. But if you don't feel anything, it's completely normal. You're not the only one. Everyone went through the same process. And this is called usually you're numb. So you cannot really check with your centers. So you could say, ah, this is not useful. Well, it is useful because I just shared with you that you should work on it. So you're already a step closer. So at least now you know that if you're numb and you don't feel anything, it's nothing bad. It's just that you have to observe it a little bit more. So one tip I can give you very quickly, start meditating and feeling into that area. Try to activate a caressing sensation, everything what is in the area that is actually closed. If it's the heart, then it's the heart zone. If it's the gut, then it's the gut zone, and so on. So the concept is very simple. The heart contracts or opens or stays neutral. This also can happen. But basically, those are the three options, the three main reaction that the heart will do. And it depends on each one. I explain and I share it this way, but for someone else, it's going to be shared differently, slightly different. But there is anyway a pattern in every human being. And its contraction, it's always there. And the contraction is very simple. You know the answer already. It's a no. You don't go there. Doesn't matter. Whatever your mind is telling you, whatever story you have, whatever excuse you have, commit to yourself and follow the center of the heart. If your heart says no, it's a no. And if you keep going anyway, you will see. And if you want to experiment, I would not suggest you to do it because I think it's unnecessary. But if you're really stubborn and you say, I want to give it a try, well, give it a try. Go to a scenario where your heart is saying no, where your heart is saying it's contracting, and you're still going, and you will observe how life will hit you really hard and will probably slap you in your face, and pain will come. I've lived like this for many years. That's why I sort of know the consequences of not following your heart. So the heart is very simple: contraction or opening. Different sensations in the openness, that's depends on your description. But the closing is usually contraction. Or neutral, and that's also fine. Neutral is fine. It means it's not bad. It means it's not a no. And it means it's not a full yes. But then you have another very important center that you can check. I started with the heart. I'm not going into order. I just shared with based on my experience, and I learned by first using the heart center. And let's let's start from zero. We have a scenario. Be completely honest, detailed, and visualize as close as reality is possible. Don't invent things, just make it real. So the first thing I do, I checked with the heart. We have checked it. We have identified. We said, okay, it's a yes, it's a neutral, or it's a no. Then we can go into the mind. What does the mind say? Here it's really important to understand, as I mentioned before, the mind is conditioned. It's a program, and it's conditioned by society, by the way how people perceive us, by fears and patterns. That's how the mind makes decisions. And in the mind, there is a lot of danger and doom scenarios, a lot of doom scenarios. don't go there because you might die. So that's how the mind works. And when you consult the mind, it is important that you're aware of this. If there is a fear, if there is a pattern, if there is a conditioning. And this does not mean that the mind is not good for making decisions. The information that the mind gives you is based on the past. It's based on very valuable information. But that valuable information is also conditioned, and that's where you have to be aware. What is the relevance of the information and the data that your mind is giving to yourself? And you consult, and you will have a very easy, understandable reply. But the mind is really good in replying and giving you maybe an excuse or maybe a story or whatever it's sharing. But you will clearly understand it because we are so used to the mind. So not no specific sensation except of observing. Maybe a sensation that you could have is your mind being very active, reacting in panic mode, for example. Interesting, it's a sensation. Just keep it there. Don't reject it, don't deny it. Keep it as an information. We have the heart, the information that the heart shared with us. Now we're checking into the mind, and the mind is sharing whatever it is. If it's panic, it's panic. It's fine. It's good. Don't make it a whole scenario out of it. This is the information you want. You're consulting with the mind. That's her reply. Once you have that information, then you can go to the gut. And the gut again. It's going to have a sensation. There's a lot of wisdom and intelligence in the gut. What I like to share is the mind is a lot based on information from the past. The heart is pure present moment. The heart will just react based on the movie that it's seeing. So your visualization that is happening in your mind that you're doing, thanks to your mind, of course, is helping you in this. The movie that the scenario A, the movie B, the movie C, whatever movie you're showing to your heart will react. All based on present moment. And that's something really important to understand. Heart is pure present moment. It just reacts and it makes a sensation. The gut, as you might already know, is more based on the future. So you will check your gut for a certain scenario, and you can have your gut contracting. In the gut, there is a lot of different sensation. At least that's how I experience it. And sometimes you have this butterfly experience as well, which is really nice. But you have so many different sensations. You can have also fear or feels like a little bit of cramps. I mean, it's just so insanely um, different to each person. And even with myself, I'm sometimes amazed, like, what is this sensation right now? But this is the gut. That's how it works. And it's usually based on future. So I have a very important example on this. During my journey, I only checked with my heart, right? So my heart says that direction, and this is important, that's the direction where you're going. I'm pointing out the direction. Should I go to that place there in the future? And the heart says, yes, sure, go. So I go. However, if you don't check with your gut, because you could have the scenario where your heart says yes to going to pointing to a certain direction, and your gut says no. And what does this means is actually your heart is pointing, you're pointing to the direction, so your heart says yes, go there. But how are you going there? And that's where the guts jumps in. How is gonna be the journey? Are you gonna go to point A by taking the pad on the left, the pad in the center, the pad on the right? Because you can reach any point, but you have thousands of different ways to reach that point. And there's where I experienced by myself. I went to point A. I had that. I had it very clear. My heart says, yeah, I go. But I had so much struggle. I suffered so much. But the outcome was good. The outcome would have been good because that's what your heart is indicating. So it's gonna be good. So the outcome was perfect. but the journey was a hell. And now that I'm using my gut, I can also check in how the journey will look like. Will it be a soft, well, sort of soft, but you can sort of understand what I mean, journey, or will it be like a hardcore, I will get my ass kicked before I reach that place in the future? So if you have a heart saying yes and you have your gut saying no, try to find a way where both align. So with the gut, you can find the journey you want to take. And the heart will say yes as well because the journey is pointing towards that direction. And the mind will calm down because your gut has shown a clear journey where you're going to go. So your mind doesn't have to create a doom scenario because the mind enters a lot in panic zone when it's unknown. So it's going to fill in with stories, the dark unknown that you cannot see and that you cannot witness, and ooh, what is there out there? So it's going to feed it with information and data from the past, doom scenarios, fears, whatever. The mind is going to fill it in. If you have a whiteboard, the mind will fill it in. That's where the guts is, and the heart is the direction. So once you have those two, the mind will calm down and makes it really easy. And now it comes to the genitals, which I have to be honest, I don't always consult them because usually when I have my gut and my heart aligned, I'm already very close to my decision. And I see and observe my mind calming down and trusting it fully and surrendering. Sometimes not, but it's okay. It's not that resistant, but it's sort of surrendering and adapting to what is the decision that has been taken. And then I still check my genitals to see how they are. Is there a reaction? For example, one of the biggest sensation you can have is, in my case, of course, I'm a man, um, but for women it might be slightly different. But one of the sensation that I have is a real big contraction of my balls, squeezing, and then I know there is something wrong. I don't have it often, to be honest. Usually, there might be a slight contraction of fear, like, "Ooh, I'm scared, but I want to do it." It's like when you're gonna do bungee jumping or something, you feel actually your genitals are like contracting, but it's not a bad contraction. It's just like an exciting fear, and wow, I'm really gonna do this. That's the type of sensation that you can have in your genitals, for example, or that I at least experience in my genitals. When it's really strong, I think I only had it once. I was like, oh, wait. Then it's an indicator for me to wait. Maybe I haven't checked very well the journey. So I go back to my journey, so the options, the ABC scenarios. I check with my gut again, I check again with my heart, and I check again definitely with my mind. The mind and the genitals are very interconnected. And the genitals usually are very influenced by the mind as well. So I just recheck everything and make sure that everything is sort of aligned and all my centers are finally sort of saying a yes. It doesn't have to be a full yes from the four centers. I have experienced it, but it's not so often. Usually my mind is a little bit more working in the background, is a little bit more resistant, but my gut and my heart are for me the most important ones. Those are really the one I really take always into consideration. And when one of them is saying no, it's a no very simple. My mind can say no, but because of what I invited you before, because I'm checking in and I'm bringing awareness to my mind and saying, why is my mind saying no? Based on information from the past. Okay, so this is not real. This is just something from the past, but this is not the reality anymore. You see? So then maybe the mind is still like, yes, but, okay, yes, but the past says this. However, we're in the present moment and we're going in another direction. So thank you very much, mind, for being part of this, but I still gonna go and understand that this is not the past or that this is not the conditioning of society. So that's why the mind is not always aligned with the gut and the heart, and in consequence, the genitals are usually the same. However, the genitals are very, very good centers to check if there is an attraction towards someone, towards a woman. For example, you can have your genitals being really active and you feel your genitals like saying full yes to this woman, to have an intercourse with this woman or having a beautiful connection with this woman. However, you have your gut saying no. And this means that the future does not look bright if you're going to go into the intercourse with this woman. Or you can have your heart saying no. You can have your genitals saying yes to this woman, your heart saying yes to the woman, but your gut is saying no. This could mean that you might be seeking for an intercourse, a beautiful connection with a similar energy, but it's not the right person yet. But it's already indicating you the direction. For example, the heart, which is maybe a direction of connecting with someone. But you got is saying not this person, because this journey, this person that you're choosing, is gonna end up bad. So you see, you can take any scenario and check with your centers and made up a decision based on what they say. And I strongly invite you to use this. You will see how it's going to change your life completely, how your decision making is going to be so healthy, and you're going to witness and observe how things will start shifting instantly when you start checking and the decision you're making. And the doom scenarios will start fading if this is the pattern in your life where there's a lot of doom scenarios and a lot of, oh, life hits me so hard and I get my ass kicked by life every time. Well, maybe it is because you're just not checking your centers and you're just making decisions based on fear and based on your mind. So there's the invitation. Have a check. If you have any question, please let me know the way how you can. You can comment, you can send me a message or whatever. I just hope you that this is gonna help you. Again, like I usually say during my podcast, this is the wish I have. This is the love I have for doing this. I just want people to improve and that this generates a really positive impact in people's life, in relationships, and in the world itself. Thank you very much for listening and looking forward to the next podcast.